Missouri, and welcome to this week's edition of What Retirement Means to You, brought to you by the team of Means Financial Group, based right here in the St. Louis area. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have President and Founder Jerry Means. On today's show, we're going to be talking about income is the outcome. Do you have a solid income plan in place for your retirement? That could be kind of a little bit of a tongue twister there, Jerry, right?
Yeah.
But great to be back with you, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you because at the end of the day, it really is all about income, isn't it?
That's correct. I mean, you work your entire working years building a nest egg so that one day you can be your own boss, or you can stop working and have your time is your own, and you can live off of those assets along with if you have a pension and Social Security and things like that. But it can be complicated.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people hold back from retiring just because of that fear of the unknown and not having a plan. But once you sit down and you build that out and you know where the money's going to come from and how it's going to be done and how long it's going to last, it takes a lot of that anxiety away, and you can actually enjoy your retirement.
Well, I love what you said there, because I think this is the problem, right? When we are working in our hard working years, we're used to getting that consistent paycheck maybe every 2 weeks or at least every month. But then once it's time to retire, it's up to us to be able to take whatever we've accumulated and turn that into a reliable, ongoing, steady stream of income that's going to last us for the rest of our lives. And this is really why the number one fear of retirees is running out of money. So let me ask you this. What are the biggest challenges that you see folks are facing when they are trying to generate income for themselves in retirement on their own?
So first of all, let's go back a little bit. So I have a statistic that I show when I do live events. And I usually start it off with a picture of Johnny Carson because it's a little bit nostalgic, you know, the Tonight Show, and it brings people back to that time.
Right.
But in 1980, there was a study that said 60% of retirees had a pension, and only 15% of retirees actually owned a stock, if you can believe that, in 1980.
Wow. Yeah.
So today, that has flip-flopped. Okay, so I mean, today, less than 30% have a pension, and almost all retirees own some type of investment, right? So what has happened is there's been a shift. And in 1978, they kind of changed the laws, and they did away with a lot of the defined pension plans, and they turned to defined contribution plans, which the viewers know is their 401ks, their 403bs, where you could put money into the plan and get some type of a match with most companies. And what it did is it shifted the burden from the insurance companies and the employers from paying a pension to now it's being handled by Wall Street, and your money's in the market, and you need to grow it over time. Now, there's some flexibilities with those types of plans, right? Because you can get your money out in a lump sum.
Right.
But the problem is trying to design a way to draw that down or draw from it so that you don't run out of money. And that's the biggest fear that people have is, well, I'm going to retire. I don't have a pension.
Right.
I have Social Security, but it's only going to be about a third of what I need. How do I fill that gap? And that's really what we specialize in doing at Means Financial Group. We sit down and we help them fill that income gap. You know, let's look at, okay, you need to have an emergency bucket. Let's figure out the best time to draw your Social Security, you know, because it's not always 62, 67, or 70, right? Some people want to draw at 65 because that's when Medicare benefits kick in, and they want to retire at 65 because they're really ready to go before that. But healthcare is their biggest concern.
They're hanging in there just for that, which is a huge piece of it.
Yeah, so we look at all that and we design the plan, and we want to say, okay, if you need $7,000 a month in retirement, and between the husband and wife, their Social Security is $4,000 or $5,000 a month. They have an income gap of $2,000 a month. And if they don't have a pension, how are they going to pull that off of their 401k, 403b, if they're going to live 30 years in retirement? Because people are living longer today. You know, I always tell people, the good news is people are living longer today.
Right.
The bad news is people are living longer today.
Which means our money has to last us even longer.
Our money has to last longer. I mean, my grandfather lived to be age 90, and I remember having a conversation with him, and he was retired for 30 years, so he retired at 60. You know, he had a pension, right? He had Social Security, he didn't have any debt, so he retired pretty comfortably. But I remember having a conversation with him, sitting on the sofa, and him saying, Jerry, I've been retired for 30 years. That's almost as long as I worked and put into my plan.
Yes.
He says the longest stint of unemployment that I've ever had.
Right.
And he said,
Yeah.
if I didn't have a pension, it'd been really scary.
Yes.
And that's the fear that everyone has. So what I do is I try to help them build a pension with those 401ks, with those 403bs, or whatever kind of qualified plan is, 457, and design that income plan using some guaranteed income sources to fill that gap. When you do that, it frees up the other money to take more risk with, because you can take it going up. Now you don't have to,
right.
but if you want a little bit more risk, put it in that bucket, but don't let it affect your retirement income.
Right.
Let that be over there for inflation. So we just kind of we use the bucket strategy and kind of put it in different models and say this money's meant for this money, and it simplifies things for people.
For sure.
And I find that's what people really like. When they come in, they sit in my office and they become clients, Jerry, you just made it simple. That's what I hear a lot. So.
For sure. Well, and I think it's important to point out that when those laws were passed back in 1978 and they created the 401k and the 403b and did away with the defined benefit plans and instead replaced them with these defined contribution plans, the burden was placed on our shoulders. It's up to us now, but there was no instruction manual that came with that, right? Yep. There was no details of, okay, this is how you generate a reliable, ongoing, steady stream of income for yourself. And so when you meet with people for the very first time, how many of those folks would you say actually do already have an income plan in place?
Almost none of them. To be honest. They come in and they bring in all of their statements and they say, this is our plan. That's not really a plan, right? And I'll go through it with them, and most of them have done a great job of saving and they have assets,
right?
But that doesn't mean that you have a plan.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So I ask them, which one are you going to pull income from? Do you realize what the taxation is going to be on this plan in retirement? Assuming on today's rates, right?
Yep.
What kind of inflation have you factored for? And basically, it's like a deer in headlights sometimes.
Sure,
and I understand that because a lot of the big box firms that are out there managing a lot of people's money are focused on the accumulation.
Yep.
They're just helping them grow it. And some of them do a really good job at that. But where I feel like the industry lacks is in that preservation distribution phase. I mean, there's other advisors. I'm not the only one that does it. But compared to the big numbers of advisors out there, very few really are focusing on that preservation and distribution phase.
Right. It's a different skill set and a different specialty. And this is what you and the team of Means Financial Group specialize in doing, is building these retirement income plans for folks.
Yeah, and if someone calls in and want to come into our office, there's no cost or no obligation to get a second opinion. And I always tell people, you can't get a second opinion from the person that gave you the first one. So give us a call, come into the office, sit down, no cost, no obligation. Let's look at what your financial plan or income plan is. And if you don't have one, let us design one for you. We do that at no cost, no charge. We would love to have you come in, sit down, talk to you, and walk through it.
Wonderful. Jerry, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, if you would like to take advantage of this opportunity to receive your complimentary on-track retirement review, and as Jerry was just saying, as part of that, they will build you your own retirement income plan, we encourage you to pick up the phone and call 844-878-1293. Or if you have your smartphone handy but you'd rather not talk to someone right now, don't worry, we've got you covered. Simply pull out your smartphone. If you open up that camera app, you can point, click, and scan that QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Means Financial Group will reach out to connect with you to schedule your time to come in and meet with the team and receive your complimentary on-track retirement review that way as well. More in this important conversation of income in retirement right after this.
I was like most kids. I wanted to be, law enforcement or fireman or baseball player, of course, that sort of thing. Growing up, even at an early age, my grandfather was a big influence on me. He was kind of the monarch of the family that everyone went to, and if they had questions, they always went to my grandpa, and I was the oldest grandson. And I noticed that during the holidays, we would be at his house, and he had 2 living rooms, and one of the living rooms he always stayed in, and everyone else kind of gathered in the other room. And he was reading the Wall Street Journal and watching the stock market and, taking a look at where things were and talking to me about politics. We just had a really good relationship, and I took an interest in investing. So he taught me how to read the Wall Street Journal when I was 13 years old. So if you can imagine, I went to school, I knew more about investing than most of my teachers did. I knew what bonds were, what equities were, how the market worked. I still wasn't planning on getting in that line of work. It just was interesting to me. It was kind of a bonding time with my grandfather. And then fast forward into my early 20s, I got a phone call from a financial advisor that worked with my grandfather, and he said, "Hey, we're looking to recruit, young guys that might want to get into business, and your grandfather said to give you a call." And once they showed me what they did, I thought, this seems like it would be a good fit for me. And 25 years later, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary in the business, so it was the right move for me.
Well, welcome back. You're watching What Retirement Means to You, brought to you by the team of Means Financial Group. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm here with President and Founder Jerry Means. We are talking today all about income. Do you have a solid income plan in place for your retirement? What does that look like? What are the challenges, and what can you do to be confident that you are going to have enough money to last you for the rest of your life? Jerry, I want to go back to something you mentioned in the first segment, because I think it's really important. And, I've worked as a financial educator, been in this space for over a decade. I know you've been in business now for over 25 years, helping folks navigate all of these challenges. One of the interesting things that the financial industry, services industry faces as a whole is a lot of the bigger corporate name firms out there are really good at the accumulation phase, meaning those years when you're working hard and you're putting money away and you're trying to grow your wealth. But an important shift happens when folks are nearing and entering retirement. Things change. It now becomes the distribution phase. And this is what you specialize in doing. So can you just represent for folks the difference between what those corporate firms are doing versus what you are doing day in and day out for your clients?
Absolutely. And this started, my first, like I said, I've been in the business, this is my 26th year. And when I started in the business, I was like a lot of young advisors, the first couple of years, I worked with everyone, right? And I realized early on that I liked working with people that were over age 50, and I realized they had their own unique set of challenges. When to draw Social Security, how to draw Social Security, should the spouse start it and the other spouse not, they wanted to know how it worked.
Right.
All of those different questions. They had pension questions, healthcare questions, Medicare questions, all of these different things that advisors they had been working with their whole life weren't addressing. And I like to compare it a lot to mountain climbing. Now, I'm not a mountain climber, but again, I like to use analogies because I think it helps them see it, they can relate to it.
Yep.
But when you're climbing up a mountain to the top, most people do fine going up the mountain, right? And that's the accumulation phase. They're gung-ho, they're ready to go, they have all of the energy, they're fresh, and they just go at it. And that's how people do in the accumulation phase with a lot of these big box companies. But where people get in trouble when they're climbing a mountain is not on their way up, it's actually at the top and on their way down. When they reach the peak, and then they're on the de-escalating
side of
it, or the de-accumulation when you're looking at investing.
Right.
And I always tell people, we like to help you grow your money, but we specialize in that peak and the de-accumulation, pulling money out, because that's where it gets more difficult. More people get hurt on the way down than they do on the way up, because it's a whole different set of rules.
Exactly.
So we basically put in guardrails to help people when they're in that situation. And I think that just there's so many firms not doing that for people, and they're wanting it, and people are coming in. I've had people come in and say, Jerry, we've asked our advisor numerous times, and they just won't really address it. They just say, we'll be fine, and we'll just pull money off the investment, and we're not comfortable with that.
Yes. And I think times have changed. To that point, one of the rules of thumb that I think gets thrown around a lot is something known as having a systematic withdrawal plan using the 4% rule. So I would first like for you to define what that 4% rule is, and then let's talk about why it's not working in today's economic environment for folks.
Okay, I'm glad that you brought that up, because when I sit across from people, I hear that a lot, the 4% rule. And it's still in a lot of the handbooks, the financial planning handbooks, or financial planning for dummies, all of these books that you can read, or if you're Google smart, right, and you get on there, you'll find the 4% rule. But basically, the principle of the rule is, over time, the stock market has averaged 8% per year. Now, most of those statistics where that came from is looking at the average since 1957. Right?
Yep.
So what, a 70, 80 year time horizon. It's averaged that. Well, that's fantastic. But when you retire, and by the way, so it's 8% is what they've averaged. So the theory is, if you only pull 4% of your portfolio, and the market averages 8%
per year, right?
per
so
year.
In retirement, let's say you just need 4% of whatever you've accumulated every year to live off of, right? That's
Correct.
kind of what it's saying.
Yep. If
Right.
you have $1 million and you pull 4%, that's $40,000. But if you're averaging 8%, you're going to make up that 40 and still stay whole, right? And there's been certain markets or decades where that has worked. When we were in a really good bull market, that actually might have worked from 2009 to 2021. And then all of a sudden 2022 happened, right? And now we've seen some fluctuations since then. So that rule can work, but it doesn't always work. And people use it like it's the gospel, right? Rule of thumb. And what I do is I show people certain scenarios where that did not work, you know, certain decades where, for example, I use an example of two brothers. And one brother retired in 2000, okay, and he pulled 4% of his portfolio out. Now, at the end of, in 1990, the first brother, 1990, had the same investment model as his brother,
Right.
pulled the 4% out. By the year 2000, 10 years later, he had more money than he started with, and he pulled the 4% out every year.
Every year, right.
Every single year.
Yep.
But if you remember, that was the dot-com, not the bursting bubble, but the boom, right?
Yep.
So the 90s were the booming of the dot-coms. The second brother had the exact same financial plan, but retired in 2000. By 2010, he was out of money because he got hit with the dot-com crash, he got hit with the 08 crash, and he never really was able to recover. You know, people don't understand, if you have $100,000 or $1 million and you lose 50%, you have half that, right? You have 500,000. How much does it take you to get back to even? How much do you have to make?
So most people always answer 50%, but that's not how it works.
That's not correct, because if you only have 500,000 and you make 50%, you're only up to 750 now, right? Because you don't have that 100,000 or that million anymore.
Right.
So it takes 100% returns to get back that 50% that you lost. So imagine how long that would take to do that.
Right.
Now imagine you're taking income off of that while you're trying to recover from it.
Right. So you're depleting the portfolio even more.
Correct. And it's almost impossible to recover from. So again, that's why when we sit down with people in our meetings and we design this income plan, I'm saying, look, you already accumulated, you've reached the peak, you've won the game, right? Now let's plan your income in a safe manner, and then the money that you want to risk, we'll set that in a separate bucket. And those are the kind of planning that we do with people.
Yeah. You know, I've had the privilege of working with a lot of different financial advisors over the years as a financial educator, and one of the stories that relates exactly to what you're saying, one of my advisor friends in the state of New Jersey had a guy call in. He had over $10 million, and he kept asking his broker, his financial advisor at the time, what's my income plan for retirement? And to your point, the guy kept saying, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You have enough. You're going to be fine. But once he started hearing my friend talk about everything you're talking about today, right? What it means to have a solid plan in place, how all these pieces have to fit together. He ended up becoming a client because he said, I don't want to just have someone tell me I'm going to be fine. I want to see it in writing. I want to see how all these pieces work together. I want to know that it's being done from the most tax efficient manner possible, that it's being done, you know, Social Security, I'm making the right decisions for that. There's so much more than just a lump sum and you're going to be fine. That's not what people want. They want a solid plan in place.
No, retirement can be a puzzle. And that's what we do. We sit down with people and we help them solve the puzzle. We're not going to just wing it. And there's a lot of people out there, that's what they feel like their advisor firm is just winging it for them.
Yes, yeah.
So if you would like to find out what your financial plan could look like, give us a call, sit down with us. We'll run through that. We'll do a written income plan for you. We'll go through the strategy, look at how much income you need and how much money we need to set aside to generate that guaranteed income. We'd sit down with you. There's no cost, no obligation to come in and meet with us and get a second opinion.
Wonderful. Jerry, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call to get your very own complimentary on-track retirement review from Jerry and the team of Means Financial Group is there on the bottom of your screen. Simply dial 844-878-1293. Or again, if you'd rather, you can scan that QR code down in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and that will get you connected as well. More on what retirement means to you when we come back.
We know the market is going to get worse from here. This is the biggest monthly decline in 10 years. People's 401ks took a major hit.
Well, my investments are tanking. My retirement isn't going as planned. I can't believe I let my kid talk me into buying crypto. I mean, what is that anyway?
This was the fourth worst contraction in history.
So how are you two doing?
Your financial future doesn't have to be uncertain. I'm Jerry Means with Means Financial Group. If you've amassed a nest egg, it's time for a financial advisor to help you reach your retirement goals. This is one of the greatest tax windows in history. Now is the time to take advantage of this tax discount while you can. All of our advisors are fiduciaries, specialize in retirement planning, tax mitigation, estate planning, and more. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your own complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis.
Well, welcome back to What Retirement Means to You, where today Jerry Means and I are discussing if you have a solid income plan in place for your retirement, what that looks like, what pieces need to be in place. And Jerry, we've covered a lot of ground already on the show today. I know that you are offering the opportunity for folks to come in and receive their on-track retirement review and begin building their own solid income plan with you and the team of Means Financial Group. When you build a retirement income plan for folks, talk about the process. How many meetings should they expect that this process is going to take?
Well, there's no set number, but typically we kind of know if someone's ready to become a client after about 3 meetings. The first meeting is really just a discovery meeting where they're going to come in, they're going to sit down with myself or one of our other fiduciary advisors, and we're going to go through what retirement looks like to them. We're going to get to know them, let them get to know us, and just ask all of those questions and then gather the information that we need to build out their plan. The second meeting is that presentation meeting where we're going to go through and we're going to say, okay, we've done some analysis. Here's where you are. Here's the things we think we could help you improve on and how we would like to help you. And then that third meeting is often just kind of a follow-up of the second meeting because we want people to be able to take that information home and absorb it, right? You come into the advisor's office and they start laying out your life's plan. You might want to go home. You should go home and think about that and talk, with your loved ones about it.
Yes.
So there's no pressure from us. That third meeting is the implementation meeting if people are ready to move forward. Sometimes people just need a little bit more time, and we understand that, and it might take another fourth meeting, and that's okay. We want to move at a pace that people are comfortable with.
Right.
But we really want them to get to know us and just feel good about their retirement, and it's not something that you have to rush or that you should rush.
Right, for sure. And I think another thing that can give folks peace of mind is understanding how your team works. Because I think one of the frustrations I've heard a lot of times when folks are working with those bigger corporate name firms is you might call and you don't know who you're speaking to necessarily, or you could be talking to a different person every time.
Yeah.
Talk about your team, and I know it's a family affair too, but talk a little bit about what folks can expect when they come in to meet with you and the team and how they're going to be navigated using your team approach.
Yeah, and I call it what you just mentioned. I call it the 1-800-WHO-CARES number.
I haven't heard that, but that's really what happens.
A lot of times people
right?
are with these big firms and they call and they get a different person every time, like you said. That person really doesn't know anything about them. They're reading off of a monitor.
Your situation,
yeah, they're
right?
reading off of a monitor.
Yeah.
We know our clients, right? We know what they look like. We've sat across from them. We know a lot about their family, and they know a lot about our family because we share that with them. So when people come in, it's funny because there's 5 people right now in our office, right? But we have all of the tools and resources that the big box firms have because we work with a big custodian that has all of those tools. The difference is that custodian doesn't pay our light bills and pay for our building. I do that. So I'm able to offer my clients what I think the best solution is. I don't have someone handing a recommendation down to me from the top.
And you're not forced or then pressured to sell a certain product or
Correct.
a certain investment vehicle, or you don't have quotas you have to hit. That's a
Correct.
huge distinction.
Yeah, so, and again, we can move at people's pace. That's what I really like about it. So when people come in, we've got our director of first impressions, which is Jen. A lot of our clients talk to her on the phone. When people click the QR code, she's more likely going to be the person that calls them to come in. And she basically does all of the follow-up calls. We do text messaging to remind them of calls, things like that. So they get to know Jen a lot. Right. If she has the day off and people come in, they're upset because they didn't get to see Jen.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's wonderful.
And then my wife, Angela, works in the office, so it is a family affair. She's our office manager. She also does Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage. That's something that we don't send out flyers and market that, but our clientele needs that, so we want to be a resource for them.
And that's awesome that you can provide it in-house to make sure all the different pieces of a financial plan
people
are
ask us
working
about it all the
together.
time, and I'm like, you know what, let's look at the financial stuff, and then I'll sit you down with Angela, and she can work with you on that in a separate meeting. My son, Brandon, is an advisor in the office. He's also a fiduciary advisor. And so I do have a succession plan if something happens and I have to get out of the business. People used to ask me that all the time. What if something happens to you, Jerry?
Right.
Well, I have a plan in place, and it's mostly my family. You know, I have another advisor, Trevor. He's got a lot of experience in the business. He probably has more credentials behind his name than I do, but he's also a fiduciary advisor. So when people call in, they're going to meet with me or one of those advisors, and it's going to be a family feel. I laugh because we also have our dog Maui. He's kind of the mascot of the office. And he's really good about running out to the lobby and meeting the clients and then runs back in and sits under my wife's desk.
Right.
And then when the clients come out of the conference room to leave, he runs back out there to say bye to them and then runs back in.
That's so
fun.
fun.
So, I mean, it is a family feeling when people come in. Some people might say that, that's not professional. But I don't care. I mean, I want like-minded people, and I find that it sets people at ease when they come in.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
So,
Right.
so that's how we are. We're just a family firm.
And I love that you are passionate about doing life with your clients. This is not a one and done kind of thing. This is a long-term relationship that you are building to really help folks be able to successfully navigate to and through their retirement.
Yeah, financial planning is not an event. You don't go in and do a financial plan and you're done. Financial planning is an ongoing process. And we want to help you through that process. And that starts by coming in and meeting with us. And there's no cost or no obligation to do that, to come in and have a second opinion. Even if you already have a financial advisor, get a second opinion. It doesn't hurt. You can't get a second opinion from the person that gave you the first one. Or maybe you've never worked with a financial advisor, but you know you're getting close to retirement and you're starting to shop around. We'd love the opportunity to sit down with you and show you what we can do for you. So come in and get one of our on-track reviews.
Wonderful. And Jerry, for folks who are newer to you, can you share the location of your office and how they can find you?
Sure. So our office is located, our primary office is located in St. Peters, which is in St. Charles County. But we do have satellite offices around St. Louis. And I'm excited to say that we're opening one down in Lake of the Ozarks. So we're really expanding the business and wanting to help more people, and that's the goal.
I love it. I love that you are so passionate about what you do, and I'm excited for more folks to have the opportunity to connect with you as a result of today's show.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. It's always a joy to be with you. Thank you, Jerry, and thank you to our viewers for being with us. The reality is we know that a lot of these things might be new to you. The good news is it's not new to Jerry and the team of Means Financial Group, and they would love to help and serve you. So again, for no cost, no charge, no obligation, we invite you to call today to receive your complimentary on-track retirement review. Again, that number to call is 844-878-1293, or you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We look forward to being back with you next week on What Retirement Means to You.